Ringo's archive of baseball legends on Hardball, McAlpin's weekly Braves update, and Matt Chernoff's Daily 10 every weekday at 10 a.m. Subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts or stream them anytime at thepodcastpark.com. Presented by Associated Credit Union. Broadcasting live from the Battery, streaming live at 680thefan.com, live on the Fan app with show replays whenever you want them. This is WCNN North Atlanta, a Dickey broadcasting station, and Atlanta's 28-year home for sports. The Fan. This is the Fan's 2020 virtual signing day, tracking all the big recruits. It's all presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, on the high school football voice of the South. The Fan.
All right, hello, welcome. 680, the Fan's virtual signing day. We're back again, fellas. It's me, Doug Konkel, Cody Chafin from Fox 5 Atlanta, and Rusty Mansell from 24/7 Sports. We are brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. Guys, we met in December for the first signing day, and that was a smash hit success. We were actually able to beat each other's presents for that one, though, but I've been contact traced. Rusty's on the DL. Cody, I guess you're healthy, but why go to a studio by yourself? So we're all coming to you from our various homes and dens and caverns and wherever else we found a place we can be safe. So, guys, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Just trying to get my audio figured out. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's good to join you guys. It would be great to be at Sport and Social today and watching it all on the big screen and having everybody with us. But, you know, it's just not to be. So, like I said, why not be in the home studio, hanging out in the guest room?
That's right. Together, apart. Rusty, how you doing there, man?
Oh, man, I'm here. I'm a little on the injured reserve. I got some audio going on here.
Yeah, we're checking out that echo. It's pretty serious, so that should make the show even more spicy as we go along. Real quick, while the genius is back at the studio, figure out your audio. I'll go ahead and tell everybody what they can expect tonight. We're taking everyone up till 9 o'clock this evening. At 7:15, we're going to be joined by Jeff Collins. That's Jeff with a G, everybody, from Georgia Tech. See the G connection there. He'll be with us at 7:15, kind of talk about the whole recruiting class they put together. Keith Knieber from Auburn's 24/7 side is going to join us. And, you know, we worked pretty hard. We wanted somebody on to talk about Auburn because they're one of the few teams that actually did a lot of work today. Because of their coaching change, they actually had scholarships to give, and they did give some today. And then at 8:15, Kirby Smart, Rusty Mansell's personal friend and great human being. Kirby Smart will join us at 8:15. I'll have to ask him if he ever made his kids those chocolate chip pancakes I promised he would make for them the last time we were together, but he may not enjoy that memory too much. Rusty, try talking now. Let's see how you sound.
Got me? I'm still getting a lot of echo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sign out and try to come back in.
Actually, you just got better on our end. And now I'm echoing.
I'll get it back.
All right, yeah, let's dump Rusty. Cody, how are you? How's your audio sounding? All right, you and me. We got something going on.
It sounds okay. Rusty's the expert.
Yeah,
so
I guess.
It'd be good to have him back. But no, yeah, it's such an interesting day because I was listening to Kirby Smart's press conferences earlier, and he said, you know, it's not really a signing day press conference. All their work had been done back in December, but, you know, it is still signing day. This is a huge day for so many players who, you know, maybe had a big senior year, were waiting on more offers to come in, and a lot of smaller school guys, and then a lot of big transfers moving in at a lot of different places. So it's a different signing day, but still important as you build your classes for the future. And one of those things, sometimes I get pessimistic, Doug, because people, you know, we throw so much on these kids who are coming into college, and we think, oh, he's going to change the program. And then, you know, you look back a few years ago and you say, well, whatever. Remember, we lived and died by what he was going to decide to do, and then he wasn't there. But you know what? When you do look back at those classes from a few years ago for all these schools, the difference makers were in those classes. So you've got to get a big group, because you know some aren't going to work out for whatever reasons, but you got to make sure you get those kids signed and get them on your campus so you can have the different difference makers, as well as some of those who may enter the transfer portal.
Exactly. I mean, that's the big equalizer now is the transfer portal and what it has done and is going to keep doing. Today and it was a wild day for me. I was trying to keep up with who went where and who did what, and it was really hard, even though there's a smaller volume of players. And we discussed this back in December, and it really became true today. There were so many kids who, like you just described, didn't sign in December, either their choice or the school they thought they were going to's choice. And they've been in the last 48, 72 hours trying to figure out where they can go, if there's a place to go, which has really been an eye-opener, I think, for a lot of guys. Just for example, there's a kid named Malik Franklin who was committed to South Alabama. You might see my South Alabama banner on the wall behind me, so I know about this stuff. So he was committed to their previous staff. December rolled around. There was a coaching staff change. The new staff, Kane Womack, came in as the new head coach, former defensive coordinator there in Indiana. Bring along a pretty good staff with him. Major Applewhite as the offensive coordinator and a few other names you might have heard of who are on the Alabama staff. So they all come together. And they honored the commitment. They said, we'll sign you in December. But the kid and the kid's family said, well, we don't really know you, so we're not decommitting, but we're not going to sign right now. We're going to see what else happens. Well, what happened was they didn't sign in December. By the time February rolled around, South Alabama had moved on. They have to move on. They've got to fill out a class. So he ends up signing with Bethune-Cookman. This is a kid, I guarantee you, is a G5 FBS level player in any other year. And this year, he was actually fortunate to find Bethune-Cookman at the end of the process and have a place to go. And there were a lot of guys like that today. And it worked different levels. There's a guy named Adrian Strickland who had been committed to Florida forever and was told on Sunday, we don't have a scholarship for you. He was looking around. Rock Taylor, a kid committed to Tennessee, was told yesterday. Can you believe that, Cody? I mean, one day in advance?
Oh, the coach was livid reading the articles about that. I did see that he ended up signing with Memphis today. So good for him staying closer to home. And, yeah, Tennessee, what upheaval we have seen since the last signing day where it kind of looked like things were sailing along. But, boy, that's changed. And, Josh Heupel there's got a job to build and maybe repair a bridge with one of those programs in the state of Tennessee.
My memory's not as good as it used to be, but Tennessee actually was finished, I think, number 15 in the nation as a signing class, which might startle people considering how late that coaching change was, but that's because he inherited a bunch of signings from December. When Jeremy Pruitt was still in place, Jeremy Pruitt, a great recruiter, maybe too great. The NCAA will figure all that out going forward. But he inherited a pretty good class. But that's just – I don't know what to say about that one. The one day in advance, that's just not done, and I don't think it should ever be done.
No, and that's how you get coaches mad at you. And, these kids, especially someone in reading about Rock Taylor in particular, was somebody who stayed committed to Tennessee through their ups and downs. And, boy, they've had some downs with some of the losses this year. But, he stayed committed to there. And to see that evaporate for him without much time to pivot is pretty brutal.
It is, and he was the most extreme example, and I mentioned Adrian Strickland, who got dumped by Florida on Sunday, but there's plenty more guys out there who had maybe a week or maybe less than a week to find a new home when the school didn't have a spot for them. A lot of that is, and Rusty can attest to this, schools keep guys warm, keep them warm. So they'll tell them in December, we can't sign you right now, but don't go anywhere else. We're going to figure it out. We're going to have a place for you. We just have to see how a couple of things unfold. Well, because some things unfold, and these guys don't have scholarships waiting for them. It can be the really bad side of the business. Oh, Rusty is apparently muted at the moment, but we'll figure this out whenever he's ready. You can see, look at that look on his face right now. That is the professor trying to figure out exactly what's going on. That's okay. They'll work on that technical end of things. But one of the things that I do want to hit on, Cody, and we can touch on it right now before we bring on Coach Collins. Alabama not only finished with the number one class in the nation, they finished with the best class in the history of 24/7 rankings. And it is the 9th time in 11 years that they've had the number one class. Now, that's all great. If you're an Alabama fan or you just love heavyweights or whatever, that's awesome. But let's face it, the college football is getting so top-heavy right now, I'm not sure that's a healthy sign for the sport.
That's what everybody was saying. When you look at the playoff teams and right now, today, you could probably fill out the playoff bracket for next year. Is that a great thing for college football? I don't know. The other interesting thing that has happened since we were last together is the video leak of Nick Saban talking about his recruit. Somebody videotaped his recruiting pitch and put it out there, and it was interesting to see. It's not sweet talking or any. He just kind of lays it out. Yeah, we put more guys in the league than anybody else. Yeah, we play in the championship game more than anybody else. So there's no trick to it other than it really helps to be Alabama. And one of the other things that probably helps with that, if you're somebody who's going to make a commitment, this is maybe not the year where you didn't end up on campus somewhere where you had such a great experience at a different school that might have wooed you a different way, maybe away from a classic program like Alabama. So without those visits, without a chance to see other places, I'm going to go the safe bet. The safe bet is I'm going to go to Alabama where we know we're going to win.
Yeah, the virtual recruiting was probably a very big part of that. You're right. And I did love his pitch, too. His pitch was, if another school tells you you're going to come there and play early, well, A, that's them sort of insulting you, saying you can't play early at Alabama. And number two, go ask all our guys in the league right now how they got to be so good. They got it by practicing against each other, even the days before they started. So it was pretty great pitch on his part. But again, I'm not sure that points towards a very healthy stance for the sport in general. Rusty, I have a slight echo in my ear, so I'm betting you have audio on your end.
I'm gonna try it one more time.
I'm okay with it. You sound good to me.
I got echo. I don't know, man. Something tells me I ain't gonna make it tonight.
No. You hang in there, buddy. We're going to get this figured out. It's all going to come together. We'll let them push some buttons. We got to talk for another couple minutes, too. But I'm going to go ahead and say one more thing about Alabama. And we're probably going to circle back to this at some of the breaks in the show. But I saw some suggestions are out there, some proposals about how to help schools handle the odd situation of the transfer portal plus the extra year of eligibility and what to do with that. And someone had proposed, well, let's let schools have a one-on-one expansion of that 25 annual limit to include anytime you lose someone to the transfer portal or if they declare early for the NFL draft. I'm saying get rid of that NFL draft stuff. Because that helps the Alabamas, right? That helps them reload with those guys. If you cut off that NFL part, that talent's got to go somewhere else. Right now, if you put that in place as suggested, it's simply going to keep the rich as possible.
Right. If they can keep adding as many guys because they have spots opening up, yeah, that's definitely going to change things. And that 25 limit there's a lot of talk about that, especially with the transfer portal and deciding what's going to use it, where you're going to use those scholarships and where you're going to bring people in. Because, when you bring somebody in, you don't want to find out a couple years later that he enters the transfer portal and that still counts against your 25. So it's one of those things that with the transfer portal that's really opened that up as well, because you're not only recruiting a guy, you really got to know him and know if maybe he doesn't get the job right away, he might not head to the transfer portal and count against you.
Right. All right, we're going to go and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Jeff Collins, head coach of the Georgia Tech Yellowjackets. I'm Doug Konkel. That's Cody Chaffins. We really hope Rusty Mansell is the next piece of our trio. We'll be talking to you in just a second on the other side of the break. You're watching Virtual Signing Day on ESPN 680 The Fan and 680thefan.com.
Georgia Tech basketball is only live on Atlanta's sports station.
Into the lane, and he jams it down. Right wing three. Yes, sir.
The Fan is bringing you every moment of Georgia Tech basketball, including all the big ACC matchups as the Jackets make a push for the tournament. Atlanta's only home of the Jackets is The Fan.
You ever lie awake at night, can't sleep, not wanting to see what time it is because that's just going to keep you up? Tonight, try ZzzQuil Pure Z's all night. Unlike other sleep aids, our extended-release melatonin helps you fall asleep naturally and then slowly releases so you stay asleep longer through the night. It's non-habit-forming with no next-day grogginess. ZzzQuil Pure Z's all night, so you can fall asleep and stay asleep. Available at retailers near you.
If you made a pact to try new things in 2021, you and your friends need to try axe throwing at American Axes in Marietta. It's safe, easy, fun, and perfect for weekend gatherings, corporate team building, and we can even come to you with our new mobile experience. Check us out at American-Axes.com.
It's the 55th Annual Football Championship, and you can follow all the action at betonline.net. Tampa Bay meets Kansas City on Sunday, and all eyes from around the world will be focused on what is expected to be a classic. Being billed as the perfect matchup of all time, it's the GOAT against his successor. In 4 previous meetings, each QB has won twice. Check out all the action this week at betonline.net as a true clash of the Titans is on tap. Always available online or your mobile device. Visit betonline.net today. Bring the game home at betonline.net.
Signing day is virtual this year, so is the biggest coverage in the South. It's all presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta on the high school football voice of the South, The Fan.
Welcome back to Virtual Signing Day on Sports Radio 680 The Fan. I'm Doug Konkel, along with Fox 5 Atlanta's Cody Chaffins, Rusty Mansell, efforting to be a part of the broadcast. We're going to see how this goes in just a minute. We're brought to you tonight by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. Let's give it a test. Cody, you ready? Let's say hi to Rusty. Yeah. Rusty?
Me?
I can hear you a little bit. That's better than before. Talk again.
I'm here. Trying.
I think we got something here we can work with. Let's get to our first guest of the night. Rusty almost feels like a guest because he just now got on with us. But the real guest tonight is Coach Jeff Collins of the Georgia Tech Yellowjackets. Coach Collins, welcome again to our second signing day show in the last couple of months. We appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. Why don't you start out by telling us, now that everything is complete, well, as complete as it can be with the transfer portal still looming out there for everybody, why don't you tell us about all the guys who are coming in and your expectations for how they're going to affect the program?
Yeah, so we signed, I think, 24 in the early signing period, or 22, and then we signed 2 more before, they enrolled in January. I think there are 16 high school guys that we signed. And then we got 8 guys through the portal to come and join us. And, there's 14 guys that are already on campus. The crazy thing about those 14, only 2 of them had I ever met in person before they arrived to Georgia Tech to Atlanta. So that was a surreal experience. There were 2 guys that I'd met previously on the recruiting trail when I first got the job at Georgia Tech. One of them went to University of Texas. Now Kenyatta Watson is back home. The other one was Nick Penley, went to the SEC, and now he's back home in Atlanta. Those are the only 2 that I had met in person, and now they're at Georgia Tech playing ball for us.
Anybody surprise you? Did you see anybody in person for the first time? Or like, whoa?
Now they're a good-looking group. Long, tall, physical. They're an impressive group, and they fit in well with the locker room. A bunch of really good guys that have done really good. We've had, I guess today was our 3rd day of our off-season program, and some of those guys have really stood out to our strength staff through the first 3 days and to the other guys on the team.
Coach Rusty Mansell here. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago, a recruiting meeting. I said, look, if Leo Blackburn doesn't go up, I'm out of the business. Take me out of this. Because this is a guy that's a freakazoid. Any words you want to throw around, this is a dude. Absolutely love him. Another guy I want you to talk about, though, I've seen him so many times. I called his game against Norcross. He is a difference maker. He is a problem. He's a matchup problem. A guy, Jamal Haynes at Mason High School. How excited are you to have him?
Yeah, absolutely. So first talk about Leo. He reminds me of what we went through with Jamir Gibbs and that whole recruiting process. Mm-hmm. Very early on in the recruiting process, we targeted Jamir Gibbs as our top running back on the board. We thought Leo was one of the best wide receivers in the entire country. And we knew it very early and went after him really, really hard. And then late in the process, both Jamir Gibbs and both Leo Blackburn, the rest of the world saw what we had seen on day one, and we're just, fired up. But both of those guys, obviously Jamir Gibbs had an unbelievable freshman year for us. Really big things to come for him on the flats. And then excited about Leo Blackburn, 6'5", 220-something pounds. And that's before Lou Corral and our amazing strength staff get a hold of him. And then Jamal Haynes, just watching him in the state championship game. Obviously, his drip level and his swag was through the roof, which we approve of. But, he's out there, kickoff returner, playing receiver, motioning into the backfield. And then one of the best things, he was the punter, too. And we just had the Ray Guy Award winner, Presley Harvin, just leave our program to go to the next level. So Jamal might have to wear a lot of hats for us.
Seems like all the NFL teams has a guy like that. He's a problem in the red zone, matchup problems. You can do so many things with him. I know he had the 404 Gucci cleats on in the state championship game. I took a picture of that thing, and those went viral. So I'm a big fan of him, also a big fan of Leo. Talk a little bit about Kenyatta Watson. This is a kid I've known for a long time, too. A lot of people know him, familiar with him at a Grayson program, but there's not many kids that are 6'2" length, his size, width off the charts. I know him personally, so I know his work ethic. Talk a little bit about getting someone like that to transfer to Texas back home, what a big get that guy was for you guys.
Yeah, so one of the cool things, I talked about him earlier, my first day on the job at Georgia Tech, my first 2 visits of the day were to Creekview to see Nick Penley, big offensive lineman, highly recruited. Yep. Then to Kenyatta Watson at Gainesville were 2 of my first visits on the job here as the head coach of Georgia Tech. We're late in the process, obviously, when I first got the job, but so fired up. They've come back home. You know, Rusty, I coach the DBs every single day out of practice, in the meetings with them. So the secondary play and what we're doing on defense is predicated by having elite corners that are up in your face, playing press man. We're just fired up about Kenyatta, his presence, his work ethic, how he's bought into everything that we're doing right from the start. Really, really excited about him.
You see a lot of staff turnover, a lot of different places. I had a chance to talk to your O-line coach the other day, Brent Key, one of my good friends, know him for a long, long time. You don't see that with you guys. And tell me how important that is year to year, especially what you're doing at Georgia Tech, almost a big rebuild. Let's be honest with it when you first got here. Tell me what it is about having those same guys, how valuable that is going into this season for you.
It's huge, and it's just I've been blessed to hire a lot of my close friends, guys that I've built relationships with over the years. They've seen the steps that we've taken the first 2 years in the development of the roster, the recruitment, obviously, and bringing guys in that fit our style of play offensively and defensively, and just the culture that we've established here. It's really exciting right now. There's a palpable energy when you come into the locker room, when you come into the facility. It's just an exciting time, and just to have those guys, third year now, the guys coming to the locker room, seeing the same coaches. We do a cool thing, Rusty, where we split up the team into 10 different off-season teams. Brent Key, his off-season team is comprised of Jeff Sims. I think there's 2 offensive linemen. Then it's rest of the team is other positions, and the bonding they go through, the competitions academically, socially, community service, academically, those kind of things, and they really get to know each other. And when you go through 3 cycles of the way we do our off-season program, there are relationships across the board. There are defensive ends that obviously they'll go to Marco Coleman, but the next person might be Brent Key. Sure. Or the next person might be Dave Patton, the offensive coordinator, because they've just developed this deep relationship throughout the course of their career. And those kind of things are huge as you build a culture, and the trust and the love, and now the roster is you've seen it through recruiting, is starting to be pretty impressive.
I asked Brent Key, what was it like that first day, about 3 periods in that offensive line group, and he goes, oh man, let's don't talk about that. So, I know you guys have been a long way. I'm always on the recruiting angle. Everything I see and hear, I think, how can they use it? I hear today you're going to play North Carolina in Mercedes-Benz. How are you excited? Because I know you're going to sell that to these kids. They got a chance to play in this big building, where all these big games playing in North Carolina. It's going to be a national game. How excited are you to be able to sell that to the 2022 class about playing in the Mercedes-Benz?
Well, so when I first got the job, I got asked the question, by our administration, would you be interested in playing a game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium? And I said, no, I'm not interested in playing one game. I'm interested in playing 5 games. Sure. I want to play one every single year. And they approached them with that, went back to them. And now it was a 5-game series, but due to COVID, we had one canceled. Now they've extended it 2 more years. We have a 6-game series with Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So every single kid that comes to play for Georgia Tech will play in that stadium guaranteed throughout the course of their career every single year. And there's very few programs that can claim that. The other piece that we do, it's 0.9 miles away from our campus. Yep. We go over there for off-season workouts. We go over there for preseason practices. I've got it in the works right now hopefully once it goes away from the dead period, that we'll be trying to have one of those practices in Mercedes-Benz throughout spring ball. I mean, it's the preeminent, stadium in all of the world, much less college football, much less pro football. And our guys get to play in that stadium once a year. And that's a really cool thing.
Yep. Also too.
We're speaking to Coach Jeff Collins of the Georgia Tech Yellowjackets. Coach, you mentioned at the top of our conversation that there's only 2 guys in this recruiting class that you've actually met in person. And I've heard people say, and I don't know if this applies to you specifically or out in the wider world, but some coaches might seem to think, since I'm bringing in a bunch of kids I'm never going to meet in person, maybe I'm going to default more towards a transfer who I can talk to his old coach and really get an idea about. Do you think that's an emotion that's kind of prevalent right now with the transfer portal and all the pandemic problems we faced?
So what we did very early on when, last February, I had told our coaching staff that I wanted to have half of our class committed by the spring game, which I think at the time was April 16th. I don't know the exact date, but the middle of April. Then the pandemic hit. Then we went into quarantine, and then we knew we weren't going to be able to go out in spring recruiting. And very early in that little window, I reframed all of that with our coaching staff. I said, we're not going to be able to go out this spring practice. We're not going to be able to go out and meet with their coaches. I was like, I want to slow down and do a deep dive into every single one of the kids that we're going to bring into this locker room, because we're not going to have the breadth and depth of background that we would being able to go out onto the road. And we did it, and we did deep dives on every single kid that we brought into our locker room, every single kid that we brought into our culture, because the biggest thing for us is the culture is extremely important. What we put on the field, the guys, the way they work in the locker room really, really matters to us. The size and speed and all those things are important. But if they don't fit as one of us in that locker room, there's going to be some bumps in the road, and we don't want to do that. So we went to great lengths to do extensive background checks, be extremely honest with what our culture is, what our belief system is, how we work, how we play, the energy that we ask out of our guys. And I think of the 14 guys that we've got here right now, that process has really paid off because they're having immediate success in our culture and in our locker room. And then I'm excited for the next 10 to get here in June, and maybe another 2 or 3 that will add throughout the spring as well.
Coach, you not getting guys on campus. You can't get them in there and sell your program.
Right.
I know the online presence has got to be huge for you guys, and you guys do such a good job. When you got there, it was Morpheus, your guy, doing all that. How important is that to get that brand out there and have it looking good?
Yeah, it's huge, and we're going to have another guy here, hopefully either Friday or Monday. So that'll be a big push to make sure we're taking the next step. But we've still got the partnership with Morpheus. He's with J1S. They were one of the first big media companies to sign on with a college athletics program. They're with us, and they do a great job promoting us, giving us all the graphics, giving us all the social media, all of those things that shine a light on what our program is, what our culture is. But I think we've got a young, energetic, technologically savvy staff that has been able to maneuver through this virtual world at a very, very high level. We've not been scared of it. We've embraced it. And I was on 2 Zoom calls earlier tonight with 22 kids. Obviously, I can't talk about them. But those kind of things you've got to be able to do. And you can't be resistant. You can't be reluctant, because this is the way the world is right now. And we just embrace it. We attack it and try to promote our program, sell our program, because we believe in what we've got building here in Atlanta. And then once this thing pops off, there's not a bigger, better place to be the preeminent program in college football than right here in Atlanta.
Coach, when this pandemic is behind us, which let's hope that's not too far from now,
Right.
What are you going to take out of this experience and what we've learned about the virtual world? How's that going to change recruiting, maybe not just for you, but for everybody going forward? And do you think maybe coaches can have a little bit of their lives back if they can do more recruiting virtually than they did before?
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting how we've gone about it, and we've learned a lot of things. We've even gone through we've done deep dives over the last 3 weeks, every part of our program, the way we travel, the way we have our itinerary throughout the week. what our workflow is, what things can be virtual, what things can we improve on from the things that we've learned out of the necessity this last year, but what are some things that are positives moving forward. So we've done that with every single phase of our program, and recruiting is included in that as well.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to Coach Collins. Coach, we can't thank you enough for joining us, not just tonight, but also back in December. Looks like another really good class for Georgia Tech, and the future indeed looks bright down on the flats. I'm already looking forward to seeing you guys kick off come, or is that going to be August or September this year? I haven't looked at your schedule yet.
September.
September. Well, we're all looking forward to that, and have a great year, and thank you again for joining us.
Awesome. And Cody, I've got to get you some Georgia Tech gear for that.
We got a buzz over there.
Yeah, that very little. I got you, man. I'm going to take care of you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. You know what's funny there, fellas, is that he picked up on all the Georgia stuff behind Cody, but I got this ACC Duke stuff right behind me. He's kind of glossed over that.
It's not big enough. You got to get a little bit bigger.
Well, I was going for a variety. Like, I got pictures of my kids when they were little wearing Brave suits behind me. By the way, I didn't put all this stuff together. I had to slap together this studio in about 10 minutes, about an hour ago. So I just put a chair and a table in front of stuff that was already here. So this is natural Konkel you guys are seeing tonight.
I'm waiting on Top Gun 2, and you see the Jordan that I definitely bought after that. I watched that series, so that's what I roll with.
Man, that was a pretty cool series. Just so everyone knows, I'm not trying to claim any relationship to Duke that I've earned. My wife is a Duke grad. This is the Duke room, we call it. My South Alabama is there. There's some Florida over here. Those are the schools that I attended, which may not quite rack up. So for people that are just listening on the radio and can't see it, we'll give them a pretty good visual now, I'd say, right?
Yeah, head over to the 680 YouTube. You can get a look at everything. Coach Collins, he loves to give me a hard time. So it was raining, and we were out at practice one day, and the Fox 5 jacket is red. So I'm wearing the Fox 5 jacket. Boy, did not like that.
Well, I think also you've got a bunch of Falcon stuff there where you are right now too, which is red. It looks like Georgia at first glance. Even I was fooled until I finally figured it out. But Coach Collins is a great guy. Man, he just bleeds enthusiasm when you get him on board. He must be hard to say no to on the recruiting trail.
Really sells his program. You can tell the brand from day one. But I'm telling you guys right now, they held off some big time guys for Jamir Gibbs and Leo Blackburn in this class. And I want to be – I got to kind of temper things, but I'm just telling you, I've been doing this long enough to know that Leo Blackburn, barring any type of injury, anything like that young man in 3 years, in my opinion, is going to be a very, very popular young man among some agents and NFL guys because he looks every bit of athletic. Had a great year. A guy that I trust that only watches tapes. That's kind of an outsource for colleges. They pay him to watch tapes. He doesn't really know the kids. He calls me up about a month ago and says, hey, that kid at Westlake, that tight end, is a freakazoid. And I said, yep, I know it. He goes, I know everybody else is getting a lot of attention on the team. He goes, that guy can run. He is a problem. And if he's legit 6'5", which I said he is legit 6'5", he said that kid's going to be an NFL high draft pick. And I certainly agree with him.
It'll be Jeff Sims' best friend.
Jeff Sims will be taking him to the varsity several times to get some meals because he'll want that big guy as a matchup problem. I got a real quick question to jump outside the realm here a little bit for guys. What's your thoughts on Joey Keem coming back into high school football, leaving South Florida, had just got promoted to passing game coordinator at South Florida, steps away from the college games, come back to Carrollton. What's your guys' thoughts on it?
I was, to say the least, amazed to see that. You never see a coach leaving, a pretty good position like that. I mean, you're one step away from being the all-over offensive coordinator to go back to the high school ranks and become a head coach there. But, maybe you guys can actually speak to it better than me. But I wonder if a big part of that is not just the weight of recruiting, which we know is tough, but now with the transfer portal, it has made things so hard for college coaches. I wonder if you looked at the simplicity of being a high school head coach at a powerful program and said, that's a better life, and I want that.
And it's an upgrade in facilities from a lot of college places. He was at Coastal Carolina, and granted, I hadn't been up there, but I got to imagine what they got at Carrollton is going to rival any of those places.
He called me, and he said, Rusty, this is the only job in the state of Georgia, the country, I would consider. He goes, I didn't want to have to face this right now, but, Joey, obviously, people know he's very, very religious, deep in his faith. Said, I'm going to pray about it all weekend. I said, Joey, you got a 125-yard indoor, brother, from day one. So
one prayer's already answered.
Yeah, he knew what was at Carrollton. He knew, but it was really and truthfully the only job he was going to consider. And again, he just had taken another step up. He was promoted at South Florida. So to leave college, and he knows he probably made that choice to come back now to high school for a long time. But he was Carrollton at the end of the day, family, got 3 small kids. His boys are getting in there, the age where he can coach them some a little bit. So at the end of the day, it was too hard to turn down what he felt like was the best job in Georgia at Carrollton.
And financially speaking, I know it doesn't pay in raw money what it pays in South Florida, but the cost of living is going to more than make up for that. He's going to probably financially hit it. And like you said, if he's got small kids, I mean, there's no comparison in terms of how much time you'll have for your family.
Yeah, I don't know if it ever come out, and I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I can tell you I would be surprised if Joey King is not the highest paid coach in the state of Georgia right now, high school-wise.
Which could be a pretty good number, as we all saw.
Yep.
I want to go back to Georgia Tech real quick for a second. That was such a young team last year. I think everyone in the world, and us 3 are included in the world, would have thought, well, they're going to be better next year because of all these young guys. But then when they bring in these 7 transfers and they got these early enrollees, I mean, how big a step forward do you think they can take this next year?
This is a big year for Georgia Tech because they got a returning quarterback. Look, when you really look at things, you only get about 3 years out of a quarterback. Jeff Sims played a ton as a freshman. You want him to take the next step as a sophomore, and if he does things well, he's probably on that trajectory to leave after his junior season if he's that type of guy. So you have to take advantage of having an experienced quarterback. You're adding transfers. You're adding playmakers. Coach Key told me the other day, he said, Rusty, when I took this job, we had about 14 of 20 linemen that played in the triple option. We had kids that couldn't even pass block. So, listen, there was a long way to go to get that room changed. They've done a good job transitioning that room. It's up front for Georgia Tech, offense and defensive line. I think they've done a good job there. This is a big year to make that move, and I still think they're 2 years away, but this is a big year to make that transition and win some games in the ACC this year that some people think they may not be able to.
Yeah, they've got a lot of guys who have played a lot of football. You think 2 years ago they had so many offensive line injuries. Those guys got experience. This past year, between COVID and everything else, they had a lot of different guys play, particularly at defensive end late in the season. And then you got Jamir Gibbs coming back, but you got Jemias Griffin coming back. You also have J.P. Mason in the backfield. So really can be dangerous. You add a receiver like Blackburn because they've had some shakeup there at receiver, but it's an older team, but also, a team that's played a lot of football too.
What I found kind of surprising, Rusty, you mentioned the offensive line. We know last year's class, it was so focused on bringing in bodies and transfers and freshmen and everything else. This year, they're bringing in Nick Penley, who's one of their transfers from Mississippi State. And, of course, he's on campus right now. Other than that, they got one high school player who was an early enrollee. That's Weston Franklin. And that's it, just 2. So they must feel pretty good about what they've got in that offensive line room.
They took some bodies. They're also going to take some transfers. They'll probably take 1 more 2 in this class before it's over with. They went heavy. Brent Key told me one thing. He knew it was a 2 to 3 year build with the offensive line room. They just couldn't turn it over. So he was not just going to take a body. He was looking for something specific, and he was looking for athletic guys, maybe not a 330-pounder. He was looking guys that could move, get on the second level, and pass block. Because let's be honest, nothing against Marist, because Marist is an unbelievable program. But when he came there, he had 4 guys from Marist, and you know how they prepare in high school. They prepared for the Georgia Tech offense. So he had to get some guys that were doing some pass blocking and that type of thing. But I think that room is turning. They got Makaya Scott, a young man that transferred out of South Carolina back here out of Gainesville, big offensive tackle. So I think they're transitioning over. I think this is a big year. I still think they're 2 years away, but I want to see how far they move the needle this year, because I think they can surprise some folks. And if they do that, coming into that 2022 season, they're going to have a lot of buzz around them.
Well, one thing I did notice about their class this time around, and you can always tell exactly what, especially in the transfer portal era, where a coach thinks he has to get better quickly. They signed a lot of skill position guys, mostly pass catchers, tight ends, like you mentioned, wide receivers. And then after that, it was just all defense. I mean, they obviously want to get better on that side of the ball, and they want to do it fast, and they want to get better quick.
Let me tell you something. They got 2 running backs in Jamir Griffin and Jamir Gibbs that I think both. And Gibbs, look what he did as a freshman. I mean, he's a stud. People forget about Jamir Griffin, who was a Gatorade State Player of the Year out of Rome and 2-time state champion. And, had a chance to watch him since he was 8th grade. So, they got some depth in the backfield. He can't talk about it, but they got a young man yesterday, Antonio Martin, who was a highly rated kid out of Langston Hughes, committed to them. He was a 5'11", 195-pound running back. So they're doing a very good job in that room, building depth there. It takes time, man. I knew when Georgia Tech came open, whoever took it was on a 7-year plan, and this transfer portal popped up, and that probably cheats it down to about a 5-year deal. You can make some moves, and they certainly have. But Georgia Tech had to completely flip their roster. And, from day one, we talked about it. Jeff Collins came in with his 404, selling the brand, selling downtown Atlanta. When I heard today they were playing Mercedes-Benz, I knew immediately that's going to be something they sell. And he made a great point. Not only are they playing this year, they're playing like 5 more years on the road. So every kid in 2022, 2023 and on will get to play Mercedes-Benz at least once. And that's a big deal to these kids.
Do you think they'll open a Waffle House in Mercedes-Benz? That'd be a good idea for them, I think.
They don't yet. You talked about the defense. David Curry played so much good football for them. That's going to be a big hole they've got to fill. They've really got to fill that hole on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. He was a tackling machine for like 8-9 years, whatever he was actually on campus there. I was kind of surprised he didn't come back again, which, no joke, may have been a 6th or 7th season he would have been at Tech.
Yeah, I keep thinking him and Hunter Renfrow had the 2 longest collegiate careers in the history of college football. I felt like Hunter Renfrow was there like 9 years at Clemson. He went through Deshaun Watson all the way to Trevor Lawrence, But yeah, David Curry out of Buford. I actually saw some video of him working out yesterday. He's working out with Chip Smith up in Gwinnett, the longtime trainer there. So it looks like he's going to try to go on to the NFL. But, you got to replace those guys. And in today's world, I heard somebody say the other day, these freshmen are so much more ready to play now than they were even 6 and 7 years ago. You count on those guys. You look at Georgia. We'll talk to Kirby Smart, but you start talking about kids like Xavier Story, Smile Munden, and those guys that are already on campus. Even though they got Quay Walker and Jacoby Dean, those guys in front of them, they'll be counted on to play special teams immediately. And if somebody were to have an ankle or turn, something like that, they're going to have to come in and play. So these freshmen, especially the ones that are on campus early, they're expecting those guys to play. Somebody told me, and it stick to me, the further you get away from the ball, those guys play quicker. So you look at the wide receivers, running backs, and those types of things. They usually play quicker than those guards and centers. It takes a little while to adjust. But an athlete like Leo Blackburn, he's going to step right in. Once he learns the playbook, there's going to be some DBs at Tech going, man, that is a big joker. I don't want to deal with him every single day.
All right, everyone, you're listening to 680 The Fans Virtual Signing Day. We're brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. Keep it right here. After the break, we're going to be joined by Keith Knieber of Auburn's 247 site. And let me tell you what, Auburn is one of the programs that actually had a busy day, which is rare in this era. So keep it right here. We're going to bring you more action on the Virtual Signing Day on Sports Radio 680 The Fan.
Whether you're out of state or just out on the road, take the station with you with the Fan app. Sponsored by T-Mobile. Get instant access to the live stream or listen to your favorite shows anytime you want them. Plus, it keeps you connected to all the latest news from your favorite teams. Download the Fan app now. Sponsored by T-Mobile.
Fever is the leading sign of COVID-19. Use an accurate thermometer for twice daily checks. Protect your loved ones with the Exergen Temporal Scanner. It takes an accurate reading in seconds and is the only home thermometer recommended by hospitals, physicians, and clinics. Stay safe with Exergen.
Don't overpay for glasses. Get 2 pairs and a free exam for just $69.95. The exam alone is worth $50. That's not just a better deal. It's America's best. Book your exam online today.
In certain states, eye exams provided by independent optometrists or ophthalmologists. See store for details.
As vaccines arrive across the U.S., Wellstar urges Georgia to stick it to COVID and follow safety measures to combat the surge of the virus. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Watch your distance. And when it's your turn to get the vaccine, know that a little stick makes a big impact for all. As we enter an era of healing and hope, everyone can get the care they need safely across our emergency departments, hospitals, health parks, and offices. Learn more at wellstar.org/COVID vaccine.
When you've been injured and somebody else is at fault, it's not you working through that with the other person. It's you versus the other person, his or her attorney, and an insurance company that has a very clear goal: pay you as little as possible. King here for Bruce Hagan, the people's lawyer, and when I was hitting traffic, I needed an expert to ensure I was treated fairly. That's Bruce, and he and his team handled it all, with the result of Chuck got a check. Get with him today online at hagan-law.com or call Bruce at 404-522-7553.
The biggest recruits in the South are making their commitments, and the fan signing day coverage is live on the air and on YouTube. It's all presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, on the high school football voice of the South. The Fan.
Welcome back to 680 The Fan's virtual signing day, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. I'm Doug Konkel, joined by Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta and Rusty Mansell of 24/7 Sports. Now, we are fortunate enough to be joined by a pillar, if you will, of 24/7 Sports. That is Keith Knieber, the jean jort-wearing man from Gainesville, Florida, all the way up into Auburn, and representing one of the programs that actually had a busy day today. So, Keith, welcome to the show.
Yeah, wait a second. I didn't know Rusty was part of this deal. Is it too late to back out, or how?
There's a reason you didn't know that. I knew not to mention that when I was setting you up.
That's right. Thank you for not mentioning that.
No, Auburn. You're right. Auburn had a busy day, man. They started in the 40s. Like 38th in the recruiting rankings. They're ending up 30th, and that doesn't look good, and it's not good. It's not where they want to be, obviously, but. When you have a transitional coaching period, getting rid of an old staff, bringing in a new staff, you lose all those weeks. And, now you have the early signing period. And this is one of the first big coaching changes nationally during the middle of one of these deals, where you had the early signing period and then, which is just a few years old. And then you have the late period, which was today. And there really wasn't a lot of great guys out there. So you go and you look at the pool of what's left and you try to get the best of what's left. And Auburn had a couple misses today, but also had some what we think are significant wins and a significant holding on to Tavares Dawson, a 4-star receiver, fastest kid in the class, ran a recorded 100-meter time of 10.58 seconds 2 years ago. So he's in that 10.3 range now. They lost a lot of speed with Anthony Schwartz heading on to the NFL early, so he can kind of get into that kind of role, being the speed, take the top off a defense guy. So overall, not where Auburn wants to be. They still have some spots to fill, but better than where they were when the day began, and certainly better than where they were a week ago. So they're making progress, but it's an uphill climb. Let's not mince words here.
Keith, Auburn signed, I think now they're up to 16. Am I correct? 16 players in this class?
Well, they're at 17 right now. Plus, don't forget they got I don't mean to interrupt you, Rusty, but they got a blue shirt from last year too. So really, they have 18 spots filled right now.
Do you see them going into the portal? Obviously, they probably will. And what positions do you think they're going to work in the summer? What's that one or two positions they need immediate help?
Well, Rusty, you're a line of scrimmage guy, being weren't you an All-American tight end? Being, you understand the interior. And look, Auburn's offensive line. In fact, I think, Rusty, you were at the Auburn-Georgia game last year. And I think I remember we talked after the game, and you were just like, kind of, I don't want to, say everything you said, but you didn't, you weren't blown away by Auburn's offensive line, basically. They had 5 guards out there, essentially, last year. You're just not going to cut it. We don't know what Bo Nix is. Bo Nix could be Chris Ricks, or he could be something really good, but we don't know yet because he hasn't had the benefit of playing behind an SEC top 5 offensive line. So they've got to address that. Interior-wise, they're okay. They wouldn't mind adding a veteran, Rusty, but really they need at least 1 tackle to come in and start, and 2 at least to come in and maybe push. Maybe a second guy that at least pushes for a starting job. To 1, just make them better as a whole. 2, provide depth. And 3, even if you're bringing guys and they're not starters, they're going to make the other guys elevate their games. But ideally, you'd like 1 or 2 new starters at tackle and be able to really have 8 to 10 guys, which they haven't had. So that's the main thing. Running back's tricky. We're going to see if they get a kid out of Mississippi, Jarquez Hunter, on Friday. That would give him 4 on scholarship. You want to have 5. Secondary, they probably could use a veteran back there, maybe a veteran thumper at linebacker too. So they're gonna start on the offensive line and work their way through. And here's another thing: if they go through spring practice and they look at their quarterback situation and say, okay, this isn't where Auburn needs to be, there's always a potential to do what they did last year, bringing a Grant Loy, who ended up being their number 2 quarterback. You could find a transfer there because you got to make sure if something happens to Bo, and he's been running for his life a lot the last 2 years, if something happens to him, you better have some kind of insurance policy, some backup.
1,000% agree. I'm a Bo Nix guy. We both covered him. We both covered him. I saw him in 10th grade. He came to MVP camp in Atlanta. We saw him at Elite 11, all those things. And you're right, Keith. When you watched Auburn last year, specifically go back and watch the Georgia game, when Adam Anderson and Zizo Jalari were on the edge, those two guys they had quite simply couldn't block them. I don't care who you are, quarterback. If you got 2 seconds to get rid of it. So I know Bo Nix takes a lot of criticism, but this young man has run for his life. Insert Mike Bobo into this thing, and a long-time quarterback coach. I think Mike Bobo is going to get Bo Nix there, but they're going to have some help on the edge, and I very well could see them taking a grad tackle transfer this summer, because that Auburn is going to be a very a spot that people know, look, I can play there pretty quick.
Yeah, that's a good point. People are like, well, there's nothing in the portal right now. What are we going to do as a team? And I'm thinking, the best, if you look at Auburn, they brought in guys from the portal on the offensive line, and they've always been later in the year. They haven't been in January or February. They've been April, May, June. Guys go through spring practice at another Power 5 school or a Group of 5 school, and they say, hey, I'm really good. Auburn needs a tackle bad. I could go there, start, boost my draft stock. Saw it happen with Jack Driscoll. Ended up being a part-time starter, I think, with the Philadelphia Eagles this year as a rookie. And he was a transfer at Auburn from UMass. I mean, nobody knew anything about the guy. And so, you've got that potential. Still a big-name program, not where they want to be, not where they have been, certainly, but still a big-name program, high-profile program. It's one of those programs you guys know. If Auburn's on top, they're getting a lot of attention, and when they're not on top, they're getting a lot of attention. People like to follow them. So it's that actually helps you, though, when it comes to situations like this. People know the program. That's a big one, no question about it. They got to juice up the O-line, absolutely. Number 1 priority by far.
Keith, with the transition now from Gus Malzahn to Brian Harsin, and obviously there's going to be some differences on offense and defense, are there any positions that maybe they were deficient at, not because of transfers or anything, but maybe because of change in scheme? Like, do they need more safeties? Do they need an extra defensive end? Is there anything in the change that's going to require more players to come into certain positions?
I guess the defensive system's changing a little bit, but I don't think from what I'm told that's a huge difference. It was more of, you're saying not transfers, but really that's what happened. They had guys leaving at running back, and that's really where they had to add some guys. But no, I don't think so. I don't think there's a huge shift. I mean, I bet Mike Bobo would like more experience back there behind Bo Nix, though. And maybe, and Rusty can speak to this, Demetrius Davis, who they signed at quarterback in December and as an early enroll, is a dual threat guy. And, people wonder, and obviously Mike's worked with both, but, people wonder how he would fit into that system. I don't really know how to answer that question, Doug, but I don't think there's been, from what we can tell, a super significant change in the type of player they want. I mean, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, tell us real quick about Brian Harsin and the reception of the fan base. I know Gus had become kind of a divisive figure by the time he was let go, and then it seemed the hiring took through the last signing day, which I know also kind of bugs some people. But how are they feeling right now about the hire of Brian Harsin?
Well, I think people look. I think they like it, and I think they like him. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, Rusty knows. When Ron Zook was hired down in Gainesville, they said, oh, this guy, he's interacting with the fans. Spurrier never did that. Look at this guy. He's great. He's raising money. He's doing this. He's doing that. And then he didn't win enough. And that's all that counts. That's all that counts at the end of the day, right? Yep. So right now it's the honeymoon period, and this guy's an intense, focused guy. There's no question about it. You watch his press conferences, and you're like, man, this guy's really giving you some insight here, and he's laser focused. He's not too many facial expressions, but the fans are getting behind him, and I think they have been because they just wanted a change. And Gus was not a failure. The guy played for a national championship, won an SEC title, played for another. They were competitive every year. They had really one bad season. They had some non-competitive games, but by and large, not a bad program. The 3 wins over Bama. And but it just kind of had run its course, right? And so they say in presidential elections you kind of go in the other direction every 4 to 8 years, right? Whatever you have, you go in the opposite direction. And maybe sometimes it's that with coaching too. And so this guy's doing things his own way. He took his time to put together a staff, and they lost some valuable days on the recruiting trail. I mean, obviously they're not out on the trail, but in terms of not having guys to really recruit. But he felt it was important to get his staff, his people in there, and, you have to respect that. He's going to do it his way. He's waited a long time to be at a program like this, a program of this stature. He left his alma mater to get there. And I just think people, they like that he's different. They like that he's not Gus, and that's not fair to Gus. Again, I don't think people hate Gus. It's just, 8 years with a guy, 8 seasons with somebody. You just want something different, and different is the opposite, and maybe that's what this guy is. Did any of that make sense? Rusty, help me out here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
Hey, we all have wives. I mean, I think we know that they can get bored of you after a few years, so sure.
No, I think they like the guy. I mean, I just think, but again, it's easy to like the guy. Well, let me give an example. People were, they got a run of commits this week, and it was mostly 3-star guys. One of them is probably going to get moved up. He's a talented quarterback that Rusty knows a lot about. But they're 3-star guys, and if Gus Malzahn was still at Auburn and they were reeling in 3-star guys, people would be losing their minds. But he's a new coach, up against it a little bit, and people are excited about every commitment. And you're thinking, wow, if this was Gus, they'd be ready to pushing him out of town again and again and again. And he's getting the benefit of the doubt early. And he should. He should, because this is a difficult situation he came into. The good news is I don't think it's a total rebuild job at all. They've got some players.
Yeah,
you got to fill in some blanks during the offseason here with some graduate transfers and things like that. But they've got some players. They can compete with just about anybody. I mean, it was just a couple years ago they lost to Georgia by 7 and beat Bama. So there's the inconsistency. Then you lose to Minnesota. So it's beat LSU by 40 points last year. I mean, so I mean there's players at Auburn, but they've got to kind of figure out why were they inconsistent. Maybe they needed a total culture change to mix it up. Just try something different. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, we won't know for a couple of years. Let's be honest.
All right. Thank you very much. We've been speaking to Keith Knieber of Auburn 24/7. Keith, I know you had a busy day today, my friend. Why don't you get some sleep and get ready to hit 2022 tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to go watch Roadhouse, and Rusty and I can compare notes later. So
yes, send me a text on that.
All right. Nobody wins in a fight. Just remember that.
Guys. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Again, that was Keith Knieber, Auburn 24/7. And, he did a lot of talking because he had a lot to say. Because, like we said, Auburn's one of the few programs today that actually had scholarships to give and needed some players.
Keith does a great job. Is he off the air yet?
He is. I think we got rid of him, so you can say whatever you want.
I talk good about him. Keith does a tremendous job. He is one of those guys that whatever team he's covering, he just consumes himself with that market. He knows exactly what's going on and had a really good day today. I followed him, all his work, and I'll tell you this: he's right about this. I talked to a lot of college coaches, and the Auburn job and the Texas job that came open were those jobs where you can win the national championship. That was one of those jobs where everything's there: facilities, players, alumni, boosters, fans. Everything's in place to win the national championship at a place like Auburn. And that realistically, that is the goal. And listen, Gus Malzahn beat Nick Saban 3 out of 5 years. It was those losses to Georgia, I think, that really mounted against him. And then those guys seeing LSU win a national championship last year, some people got unhappy with some things and it just didn't work out. But, you look at it, Gus Malzahn beat Nick Saban 3 out of the last 5. That says a lot. But he could not beat Georgia. Just did not have very good games there, and that really started the landslide against him.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Kirby Smart around 8:15. So if you enjoy Georgia football, you might want to just keep it right here. And right here is 680 The Fan's virtual signing day, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. You're listening to Virtual Signing Day on Sports Radio 680 The Fan.
Whether you're out of state or just out on the road, take the station with you with the Fan app, sponsored by T-Mobile. Get instant access to the live stream or listen to your favorite shows anytime you want them. Plus, it keeps you connected to all the latest news from your favorite teams. Download the Fan app now, sponsored by T-Mobile. Georgia Tech basketball is only live on Atlanta's sports station.
Into the lane, and he jams it down. Right wing three, yes sir!
The Fan is bringing you every moment of Georgia Tech basketball, including all the big ACC matchups as the Jackets make a push for the tournament. Atlanta's only home of the Jackets is the Fan. Still working from home?
Coming back to work isn't always easy.
No problem. Just tell your smart speaker to play 680 The Fan and get instant access to the Fan's live stream any time of day, thanks to South Point Financial. Or you can stream us live at 680thefan.com.
The Atlanta Braves 2021 promotional calendar just dropped, and this season has got some great giveaways that you won't want to miss. The lineup includes bobbleheads featuring Max Fried, Mike Soroka, Travis d'Arnaud, and of course, the Freddie Freeman MV Free bobblehead. And don't miss the Ronald Acuna chain giveaway in July and the Ozzy Los Bravos bobblehead in September. Kids Sundays are also back this year with giveaways each Sunday home game. To check out the full list of giveaways, theme nights, and specialty ticket packages, visit braves.com/promos. Atlanta Braves baseball for the A.
This is Atlanta Braves spring training on WCNN North Atlanta, a Dickey broadcasting station. The Fan. This is the Fan's 2020 virtual signing day, tracking all the big recruits. It's all presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, on the high school football voice of the South. The Fan.
Welcome back, everybody. It is 680 The Fan's virtual signing day. Like you just heard, but I'm going to repeat it. It is brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. I'm Doug Konkel. Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta, Rusty Mansell, 24/7 Sports. With us at the moment, we'll be talking with Kirby Smart in just about 15 minutes or so. But until then, gents, we're going to fill some airtime all by ourselves. Cody, you didn't talk much last segment, so it is your time to shine, my friend.
I'm curious. I wanted to ask Rusty. We had talked to Keith a little bit that Auburn's looking for experienced players and then looking in the transfer portal. But they also signed a JUCO guy, linebacker out of Troup County, Joko Willis. But it's like he didn't play this year. How different and difficult is it for those JUCO guys to get signed this year because most of them didn't have a season?
Yeah, most of them are about to start in about 3 weeks. So you have to go back and look at tape. You talk to his high school coach, find out some things about him. And he's a situation where Auburn has a need, and there's only so many left. So you say, look, we feel comfortable with this guy. Let's go ahead and give him a shot. And, Joco Willis was Kentucky was recruiting him, Arkansas, Mississippi State. A lot of schools were recruiting him. He's gained a lot of weight in the last couple of years. He played on that team with Kobe Hudson and those guys a couple of years ago. They were very, very talented down at Troop. So I think when you look at the Auburn class, and look, me and Keith talk a lot. It's offensive tackles, man. They got to have those guys that can block those edge rushers. Until then, I don't think you get a true sample of Bo Nix because he runs for his life. You can tell he doesn't trust his pocket. He's not looking downfield sometimes. Sometimes he takes off before he needs to. Mike Bobo, obviously a personal friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years, but I'll tell you this. You can go back and look at all the stats. You can look at Mike Bobo with Will Friend, who left Tennessee, was at South Carolina for about 4 days, and then he comes to Auburn to join Mike Bobo. Those two together, they're on the same page. They know exactly what they want. Will Friend's going to coach up that room, but they're going to get some guys on the edge that are a little bit more athletic to block guys like Adam Anderson and the guys you see in the SEC off the edge. Brenton Cox down in Florida, Alabama, Will Anderson, true freshman of the year, basically. You got to be athletic to block those guys, and I think that's the biggest difference in Auburn right now. They have got to get better on the outside edge. They can really do what they want to do offensively because we all know this. They got a really good running back in Tank Bigsby. He is a freaking dude out of Callaway, and they can build around him. Got Owen Papo, a young man we all know out of Grayson, who's a third year. He's a junior. Hard to believe he's already a junior.
Wow.
They got some really good players there. So Keith's right. It's not a total overhaul. They've got players. They need to get better in specific positions real quick to get to where Auburn wants to be.
That's one thing he said that struck me as well, is he said they started 5 guards last year. And I've heard that expression before, but it's never at a high-level program like Auburn is or is supposed to be. The one thing that really sets, the higher-level programs for the lower-level programs is your big athletes, right? Because you can find a lot of safeties and wide receivers and cornerbacks, but those big guys who are physically skilled are much more rare. But in Auburn is supposed to have them, and that they didn't is kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah. And I think playing in the SEC West, you better have them.
Yeah. Yep. And I didn't really realize it until that Georgia game. And I thought, I mean, I go back to Adam Anderson. When you see Adam Anderson in that stance on third down, you better be ready because it's a jackrabbit coming off the edge. And he is a freaky, fast guy. Now, run down, sometimes he struggles because he's a little bit light still. But when you're in pass blocking situation against Adam Anderson, you better be able to move because he will fly by you. Azeez Ojulari, many people thinking he's going to be a first rounder as well. So just that game was what really set me off. Like, wait a minute, man, Auburn's got problems. If this is what they're bringing, because they had guys that were interior guys trying to play on the edge.
Rusty, I will ask you.
Sorry, go ahead.
If we talked 2022, the Gunnar Stockton news came down this week. Was that a loss for Auburn? Did people think that Bobo was just going to bring him right with him?
Not yet, because the problem that Auburn faced there. And Gunnar said that Mike Bobo was a class act when he called him. I know for a fact that was a very hard call for him. I talked to his father right after he did it, and that's kind of when I found out he was going to Georgia because, hey, he just got off the phone with Mike Bobo, and I'm thinking, well, he's committing to Auburn. He goes, he let him know he's not going. He's going to Georgia. And I was like, wait, what? But he said that Mike Bobo was a very class act. He's been doing this long enough to know that that kid made a decision because Georgia finished second to South Carolina. I mean, it was really, really close, even with that connection, all those connections to South Carolina. But Gunnar said it in his interview, look, when it happened at South Carolina, I pretty much knew I was going to Georgia. Coach Bobo ends up at Auburn. He's never been down to Auburn, doesn't know a lot about that staff, doesn't know. He's very familiar with Kirby Smart, Todd Monk and Buster Faulkner, a guy off the field, the old Parkview quarterback, former Southern Miss OC. He's an analyst. So those guys did a very good job. He is very aware, obviously, of Brock Vandergrift being there. Gunnar knows going to Georgia is going to be a battle, but at the end of the day, he told me I could not quit thinking about the opportunity to be a Bulldog. So, he was not going to pass his chance up. Obviously Kirby Smart won't get to talk about that. He can't talk about the 2022s, but, he knows it's all about having quarterbacks, and you got to have one to win the big games. You got to have one to win the national championship, and you cannot afford to have somebody like Gunnar Stockton go to another school that you're going to play. But you recruit him and you let these kids battle it out. So we'll be talking about Gunnar Stockton, Brock Vandergrift. Carson Beck, a lot of people write him off, and maybe he's a little bit of a dark horse now, but as long as he's still at Georgia, he's definitely worthy of mention. That's a guy that, he's a 6'4" kid with a big arm. So we'll see. It'll be a big spring practice for Carson Beck and Brock Vandergrift, because I think both will kind of know the pecking order at the end of spring.
Rusty, we got to talk our 2022s before Kirby Smart joins us in a few minutes, because he can't. Like you said, they got a big commitment today, if I'm not mistaken, for 2022, right?
Large
man.
Bear. Listen, when you're named Bear, you better be a big man with paws. And this is a 6'3", 325-pound. Georgia fans ask me all the time, who's going to be the replacement for Jordan Davis? Well, today, if they can keep this young man and bring him on campus, he's going to have a chance to play for the Georgia Bulldogs, because he is that space eater interior guy that can rush. Keith talks about 3 stars. Jordan Davis was a 3-star prospect. He's probably the best player on defense for Georgia, and was this year. If he wasn't, Eric Stokes was the second best player. Guess what? Eric Stokes was a 3-star prospect. So sometimes people get carried away. Sometimes we miss. We had to project. Eric Stokes played corner at Eastside High School. He played running back at Eastside High School, very little corner. So we had to project him. Nobody could see him play. When he got to Georgia, it's obvious he was very natural and fluid and used that 10-4 speed to become a guy who he is. So jumping off the 3-star bandwagon a little bit, coming back to Bear, he's a 4-star prospect for 24/7 Sports, 5-star on some of the other sites. So this is a kid that Georgia beat Texas A&M. Georgia beat Alabama for him so far. If they can hold on to him, a tremendous job by Trey Scott. And I'm telling you right now, the 2022 class is off to a really good start for Georgia.
You mentioned Alabama, Rusty, and before you were able to join us tonight, Cody and I were talking about Alabama finishing up with the highest-rated class ever in 24/7 sports history. Number 1 in the country for 9 of the 11 past years. And obviously people have talked about this, but is it a little bit too top-heavy? I mean, is it a little bit much? Is it good for the sport when that program is so dominating when it comes to on the field and off the field right now?
For the viewership and those types of things, people are getting tired of seeing Alabama win, for national college football, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to do something about it. You got to, the college football rankings were the college football national championship game was down a little bit. The numbers were way down, I think. And I think it's a little bit of that. But listen, Alabama doesn't care. They don't care what their ratings are. They're going to watch. And I'll tell you this, I even made a board post on our board today on the Georgia site before I came on here. There was so much discussion about Alabama. I said, listen, you go back and look at that class today. That was unbelievable. I never thought I would see one that high. And you just have to tip your cap to them and say, hey, that was a great job. Everybody saw the leaked video this week of Nick Saban. I know he's probably ticked off about that coming out. But I'll tell you, you look at what they did, and you just have to tip the cap because they just reloaded there at every position, just guys that are so highly rated. Just look at that thing, and there's NFL guys there. But I didn't want people to, really lose track of Georgia in a pandemic. Goes and gets the number 3 class on 24/7 Sports Composite. Did a great job. They got a quarterback. They got 5-star tackles, 5-star linebackers. They got a 5-star DB. They got several DBs. They got all these guys, I think. That was a really, really good class for Georgia. So you kind of keep yourself and stay in your own lane. So if you're Georgia, you're very excited about that class. Missing Tyrion Arnold today was a big deal. Not going to sugarcoat it, but you still answered questions with the DBs and the guys you're taking. I'm certainly going to ask Kirby here in a minute how active they're going to be in the transfer portal. So I guarantee you they're going to have to bring at least one DB between now and June into this roster.
The other program that's part of the top-heavy formula is Clemson, and they finished with a number 5 class, and I don't think I heard their name all week. I mean, no one even noticed.
They stay in their lane. You look at Clemson, and they just do this. They're so consistent. Barrett Carter, I mean, all these guys they get. I mean, they're about a 5 to 8 range usually every single year with that deal. So I tell you this, that Clemson is doing things in the ACC, and they have elite quarterbacks. They got another quarterback. I think they're about to get another one in Ty Simpson. So they're really every 2 years stockpiling these quarterbacks. They got running backs. They got linebackers. They got DBs. We'll talk about it a million times, but Georgia opens up with Clemson, and we'll see if Georgia can look at some of the things that gave Clemson a problem facing Ohio State this year, some of the speed it got in behind them, gets their secondary. I think Clemson returns all 11 guys on defense. So there'll be some questions, but you look at Clemson, man, very consistent, do what they do. And as long as they keep getting those elite quarterbacks with those guys they've got in the ACC, they're going to be around for a long time in important games.
All right, guys, we better take a break, kind of gather our energy, center our cheese. So we are ready for Kirby Smart. Is going to join us right after the break. So keep it right here, everybody. We will talk to Kirby Smart more about the 2021 recruiting class coming your way here on 680 The Fan's Virtual Signing Day, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. That's Virtual Signing Day on Sports Radio 680 The Fan.
One big thing to be excited about in 2021 is your Atlanta Braves.
Tell you what, if you're looking for firepower, you've come to the right place. Another home run for the Braves.
With a reigning National League MVP and an explosive lineup of young talent, it's going to be a big year for the Bravos.
That ball is gone. Home run, Dansby.
And there's only one station live from the Battery every day, and live from Northport for every moment of Braves spring training. Starting our 12th year as the home of the Braves, The Fan.
What's your car worth? Find out now at JimEllisBuysCars.com, the safe and hassle-free way to sell your car. Plus, Jim Ellis will beat any CarMax purchase offer by $500. Sell Jim Ellis your car today. Fast, easy, fair. JimEllisBuysCars.com.
Georgia Tech basketball is only live on Atlanta's sports station.
Into the lane, and it jams it down. Right wing three. Yes, sir.
The Fan is bringing you every moment of Georgia Tech basketball, including all the big ACC matchups as the Jackets make a push for the tournament. Atlanta's only home of the Jackets is The Fan. Still working from home?
Coming back to work isn't always easy.
No problem. Just tell your smart speaker to play 680 The Fan and get instant access to The Fan's live stream any time of day, thanks to South Point Financial. Or you can stream us live at 680thefan.com. One big thing to be excited about in 2021 is your Atlanta Braves.
Tell you what, if you're looking for firepower, you've come to the right place. Another home run for the Braves.
With a reigning National League MVP and an explosive lineup of young talent, it's going to be a big year for the Bravos.
That ball is gone. Home run, Dansby.
And there's only one station live from the Battery every day and live from Northport for every moment of Braves spring training. Starting our 12th year as the home of the Braves. The Fan. The Fan's Podcast Park brings you the biggest lineup of local podcasts in Atlanta, all presented by Associated Credit Union. Get 2 hours of college football talk every day with the Chuck Oliver Show podcast. Welcome to Matlanta, Domino's archive of baseball legends on Hardball, McAlpin's weekly Braves update, and Matt Chernoff's Daily 10 every weekday at 10 a.m. Subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts or stream them anytime at thepodcastpark.com. Presented by Associated Credit Union. Signing day is virtual this year, so is the biggest coverage in the South. It's all presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta on the high school football voice of the South. The Fan.
6:80 The Fans virtual signing day show taking you up until 9 o'clock tonight. We are brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. I'm Doug Konkel, joined by Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta and Rusty Mansell of 24/7 Sports. You can check us out on the YouTube channel. We're doing this Zoom thing live for everybody. We're also, of course, on the radio, so you can probably hear us that way as well. Joining us now, not via Zoom, but by a telephone, is the coach of the Georgia Bulldogs. That is Kirby Smart. Coach Smart, thank you so much for joining us again after you were with us just a couple of months ago.
I'm excited, guys. I'm just thankful to be on here by phone and not have to be on here by Zoom. I'm about zoomed out. I had 3 Zooms tonight, had a couple Zooms the other night, so I'm enjoying a regular phone call.
Coach, you brought up these Zooms, so I got to ask right away: are these 2022 guys that you're already in touch with? Because now the rules got shifted around, right? So the first contact day was actually Monday. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a technicality. You could Zoom with them prior to that, but it had to be set up and by those guys. Now we can call those guys kind of openly. So 2022 they have been bombarded with calls and Zooms and things now. But if you're ahead of the ball game, you're able to get on with them. For the last couple of months since we've been done with our recruiting class, we've really hit 2022 hard here in the last month.
Coach, you talked about it today. How strange was this to be calling it signing day when all the work was done back in December?
Yeah, I told our sports information guy, Claude, I said, this is like really anticlimactic for most teams because the work was done. At least, y'all know better than me, but I would venture to say 90% of kids were probably signed at this time. And it was, it's a sped up process, but more so because of COVID, because, basically all our kids just about were mid-years and they wanted to come early and not be in high school this spring. So it's very different than I can ever remember. And it's changed so much in the last 3 to 4 years because the early signing date changed it, but now COVID flipped it even further.
Coach, obviously got some spots left, and, a lot of teams are doing different things. This portal has changed the game of roster management. How active do you think you will be before the season kicks off in 2021 and in September for you? What's your plans and what do you look for in this portal the next 4 or 5 months?
Well, we're always actively looking. As soon as a kid jumps in from a different place, we're always looking and investigating guys. And, we're really slow to jump on something like that because for us, we got to know that kid's going to be able to play right away, and he's got to be able to help us and use it that way. So, we'll look to see. I think at the end of some spring practices, you'll see some more movement in there when guys are coming out of spring to kind of see where they are on depth charts, and there'll be another movement of guys, and we'll be looking to get some guys. But we're also always looking at high school guys. There's 2 or 3 scenarios that are out there that people aren't thinking outside the box that it'll be interesting to see if those play out. If you look back last year at this time and said, okay, if a kid was not signed, how did they end up at a place? There's been reclassifications. There's been kids that announce where they're going out of the portal that they're not actually signed. You don't actually sign until you enroll. So there's a lot of wiggle room left for a lot of these kids, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Coach, in my industry, obviously it's I would say the quote unquote hot name kids that are, uncommitted and they got battles going on that. Take a kid. I want you to talk about this kid now that he's on campus. Take a kid like David Daniel, committed to you early, helped you recruit. He doesn't get the headlines. He never asked me about an article, never asked me about his profile, stayed in his own lane. I think he's worthy of some talk because he signed, never wavered. Talk about a kid, David Daniel out of Woodstock, committed on campus now.
Well, you're talking about a kid that's worked with one of the guys that develops a lot of great DBs in Glenn Ford, and he's worked with that I Dare You group, and he's grown up a lot. His coaching staff there do a tremendous job with him, and he was a kid that I remember the first time I talked to him, I was in Atlanta and had like a Dave and Buster's, and this kid was blowing up a 10th grader, and he called in, spoke to me, and got to know him, and ever since then, we've gotten to know his family, and I'm excited about what he can do. He's going to have to get bigger and stronger. He's not but 180 pounds. It's really hard in our league to go tackle the Kendall Miltons and the Zamir Whites of the world at 180 pounds. He's got to put some muscle on, but that's what we've got a strength and conditioning program for and a nutrition program.
One more kid I want to ask you about. It's on campus now that, I know you guys won a big recruiting battle with him. Coach Todd Hartley did a great job, but I think this kid is going to get some headlines. I think this is going to be a kid that's going to get opportunity to play meaningful minutes next year. Talk about Brock Bowers, tight end out of California, and what you've seen early on or what you've heard early on with him on campus.
He's an exciting guy. I don't like to build up the expectations too high on these guys, but when you start seeing the GPS numbers and you see the quickness, the competitive nature, we're finishing every workout with a tough man kind of competition right now, and it's one of those deals where you got to pick up some weight, run with it, do something crazy like an obstacle course, and he's put on some good shows out there as far as a competitor that's strong, that's fast, that's tough. And it's going to be a matter if he can learn, and pick up the physicality part. But just early watching, he can run. And the guys that can run get on special teams, get on the field for special teams early. And he's one of those guys. He complements Darnell well too, for Darnell's size.
We're talking to Coach Kirby Smart of the Georgia Bulldogs. Coach Smart, you had mentioned before about December's being different than February. Do you like December? I mean, it made today very different. It's a different sort of story for us to cover on our end of things. All the drama's not packed into one area. But from a coach's perspective, now that you've had a few years of it, do you like the fact that there is an early and a late signing day?
I think it's changed it. I like it better the way it currently is than the way it was. I still think there are things that we can do to maybe make it a little bit better, but I like the way it is because it felt like in January and, what little part of February we've seen, we were able to focus on our roster. Nothing gets talked about enough of the 75 to 85 young men that are on our campus that we're trying to keep mentally healthy, physically healthy. We had 8 or 9 kids that had to have some kind of off-season, whether it's a surgery, an injury, or rehab, and you usually don't get to spend any time with those kids. So this is one of those times that we weren't gone all January. We got to sit with our kids. You're trying to keep kids from going into the portal. So our ability to spend more times with our current roster and our mid-years was invaluable. Now, that didn't have as much to do with the sign date as it did with COVID because we weren't allowed to go out. But we were able to focus on the 2022 class, and these kids make their decisions and move on a lot sooner with a December sign date.
Coach, there's a lot of talk about everybody in the secondary that has moved on. You talked about you need some of your younger guys to step up. Then Keely Ringo posted a picture today of the speed he was at practice, and everybody's jaws dropped. What can a guy like that do to fill a hole in your secondary? And you talked earlier today, it's a tough place for a really young guy to come in and start.
Yeah, it is. It's SEC is not for the faint of heart out there on the perimeter. You got to be a good player. You got to have good pass rush around you. You got to have great guys that can communicate. Our system is one that you need some experience in to learn and develop. And fortunately for Keely, he's really a bright kid. he didn't miss a meeting last year, and he knew he wasn't going to play. He had had surgery, but he was in every meeting, front row, on the edge of his seat, answering questions, which told me right away this guy's made of the right stuff, because a lot of kids check out once they get injured and they don't focus as well. He was very focused on learning while he was out. So I had to get on him about posting that, though, because that's not really fair. It's one of those deals where you post you're faster than Arian, well, you better live up to it, because there's a lot of days that Arian's faster than him. So I told him, I said, you can't just post the good days. You can't run out there and say that you're the fastest man one day or one race, because consistently Arian probably is faster than him.
Coach, Jordan Davis coming back. I know Jamari Salyer, some of those guys, you got to come back. Adam Anderson, all those guys made those decisions to come back. How important is it to have not only experienced guys, but to have leaders in that locker room? Went through a pandemic. It's going to still be a different type spring probably. How important was Devontae White and all those guys coming back to you, and how much do you have to recruit them? How much time do you spend getting those things done to keeping those guys?
Yeah, the focus on our roster was the entire January, and obviously some guys made a choice to move on to the NFL, and we were happy for them and we support them. But the guys that decided to come back, you can say they came back for the team. You can say they came back selfishly to improve their own stock. And I think both those things are okay. I think a lot of people assume it's like, oh, they came back. Well, a lot of them didn't like what they got told, and they felt like they were a better player than that. So I'm excited about what's coming back, and they're really good leaders, and they're going to have to be, because so much of what we need is not just ability. It's that locker room makeup and that connection. And we talk about mindset all the time at our place, having the right mindset. And these guys make up our mindset.
JT Daniels, started the last 4 games for you. You guys won those games. What's it going to be like going into the offseason? I know every position's up for battle, but you got a guy that's a little bit more established. Now he's got play time. He's been in the system now. You know him. Coach Monken knows him. What's it like having JT Daniels in a different setting going into spring, knowing you got an established quarterback?
I think it gives those receivers a lot of confidence. Those guys want the ball, and they know, hey, this guy can distribute the ball. He's proven that he can play at a high level in the SEC and throw the ball around. We got to get the best 5 alignment out there, and I think that's a big part of our next step is growing up the young, talented O-linemen to get the best 5 out there so they can protect JT, and we can use the skill set of our wideouts and tight ends and certainly our backfield. But, I'm really excited to see Carson Beck and Brock go out there and play too, because I'm telling you, we got some guys along with Stetson that can flick the ball and throw it that, we haven't got to see yet.
My last question will be the most important question. A couple weeks ago, Miko Hardman played Nick Chubb in a playoff game. Your son Andrew is a big jersey guy now. I know he's a big fan. What jersey did he rock in that game when Miko played Nick Chubb?
Rusty, it's funny you asked, because he's sitting right here by me, So he said he didn't rock either one. He went with his Tyreek Hill jersey.
He went with South Georgia then. He went South Georgia.
Right. He went with South Georgia. He's a big cheetah man, so he is Tyreek Hill all over. He thinks he can run like him. He's got a long way to go.
My goodness.
Hey, he wanted to tell y'all who his favorite signee this year was. I asked him, I said, who was your favorite signee out of this class? You want to tell him?
Amarius Mims.
He's at the top of the list. Good choice.
Hey, you bring him to show and tell. You bring him to show and tell. Nobody's ever going to mess with you at school, Andrew. I can guarantee you that, because that is a large human being.
Yes, it is. He's out there working, too. He was busting his butt today. I was impressed with his work habits.
Coach, you announced today that Will Muschamp comes in as a defensive analyst. The big question is, have you guys gotten to get on the basketball court yet? Because I know when you guys are on staffs together in years past, it got kind of crazy out there, right?
No, we'll be safe from that. My wife will encourage that because she wants me to exercise, but there'll be no more basketball for Will and I. We'll be watching our kids play. That's the only basketball we'll be doing.
Hey, Coach, last question. What's the schedule for you for the spring? Do you have a date yet for your spring game and when your practices will start?
Yeah, April 17th is the Saturday of our G-Day game, so we'll play. We don't have a time set nor a kind of an attendance policy. I think we're still working through that as an administration to kind of figure out exactly how they're going to handle COVID, the stadium, and things. But we're excited for it, and we want to get started. The actual start date could vary a little bit, but it'll be early. It'll be early March, probably the first couple of weeks of March. We'll start right in that window, and we'll have our 15 practices.
All right. Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, this is Coach Kirby Smart from the Georgia Bulldogs. Best of luck. Have a great spring, and let's hope we have a very normal 2021 season, Coach.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Go Dogs.
All right. Thank you again. Kirby Smart, Georgia Bulldogs, joining us today, the number 3 class in the nation today. Rusty, is there anybody we haven't hit yet in that class, since we just had Coach on, that maybe we haven't given some due to?
Probably Nylon Green. He was a 5-star corner out of Newton County, and he's a big-time athlete, and he's so long. I tell you what impressed me about Nylon. I went to see Newton County play to play McEachern, totally different. Play McEachern, and different skill from Almerchi for sure. Went to see Newton County play McEachern, and he played every snap. He played offense, he played defense. He was the long snapper on punting. I was like, because he kept coming down and making tackles. I was like, where's he coming from? And I watched, he was a long snapper, and he did the long snapping for extra points. So you take a kid that's an All-American. He's got every offer in the country. Everybody wanted him. He played every snap. And I'm telling you right now, you look at Brian Banks that played in Alabama this year from Sandy Creek. I'll never forget the stat. They played Cartersville 2 years ago in a double overtime game. The kid played 181 snaps. I will never forget that. And it tells you how much he loves the game. Brian Banks playing at Alabama as a true freshman because he loves the game. And I certainly anticipate Nylon Green, a kid out of Newton County, will get some minutes. And then, if he gets there and learns a system under Kirby Smart and those guys, it wouldn't surprise me to see him playing some next year. And I know that Kirby probably said something to Keely Ringo about tweeting that because that's information that you just don't, you don't get it out there. But, his mom put it out there. He probably sent it to mom, and mom shot it up. So I think everybody might have got a little slap on the wrist. But it shows you the elite speed. You're talking about a guy that ran 10 300 meters in high school along with Arian Smith. So those two of the fastest players in the country. Georgia's got one at wide receiver and one at DB.
Yeah, and they didn't get to see him this year. It's almost an addition to this signing class because we didn't get to see him out there.
I saw him at I saw him, ironically, the first time I saw him was at the Adidas 7-on-7 National Championships. They got to the semifinals. It was a team from Arizona versus Hustle Inc., a team out of Atlanta. And I look out there and I see Keely Ringo guarding Eric Gilbert. And I knew when I looked at those, I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch that matchup 4 or 5 years from now on Sundays. But it looks like now I may see that matchup some next year down in Jacksonville, because you look at Keely Ringo. He's a 6'2 kid, 6'1.5", 205-pound corner that can run 10-3. You just don't – there's one or two a class, and Georgia got him. I know he was hurt, but that says a lot what Kirby Smart said about him attending every single meeting in the offseason. Says a lot about him. Great kid. Mother just went through a pretty serious cancer battle, and she seems to be well on her way. They're very, very tight. She was very comfortable. I asked her at the All-American Bowl. We were sitting there one time at the banquet, and I said, as a parent, how hard is it for you to send your kid across country? She said, it's extremely hard. But she works for an airline, so she's able to do a lot of flying and stuff. So she'll be in and out of Atlanta, but she said, I felt like Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning. I trusted with my kid, and they won her over, and they got him. I think Keely Ringo is going to be a special player, and Georgia's going to need him immediately opening up with Clemson.
Well, I want to get back to Eric Gilbert real quick since you brought him up. We've talked transfer portal some, and I remember all three of us saw him play when he was at Marietta High School, and just even on a team full of great players, he stood out.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys. I was pretty surprised when he went to LSU, and he really kind of opened the floodgates for that class, in my opinion. And the fact that he only made it a year there, and then he wanted to come to a different school. I want to say come back home, but he's going to be going to the University of Florida. Tell me a little bit about what you guys, what your feelings were on that transfer.
Well, for me, I think the whole recruiting industry missed him going to LSU. When I walked into that All-American Bowl jersey ceremony at Hall of Fame that night, he was going to announce there. Cody was probably there too. I think you think he's going to Alabama. Alabama thought he was going to Alabama. The recruiting industry thought he was going to Alabama. And I remember when he said LSU, I looked, and his mom kind of turned and looked at him like, what did you just say? And I was like, she didn't know. She didn't know. And, we have Shay Dixon, who works for our 24/7 site, LSU, and he's very connected to that staff. They didn't know either. Somebody had to run from the football office to the practice field at LSU and say, we just got Eric Gilbert. And Orgeron starts running around the practice field, and everybody starts clapping because they didn't know either. So he did a great job keeping that on the low. But I knew that Florida was a team that was recruiting him hard. Georgia was as well. He's got some academic stuff to clear up. I know there's rumors out there. I'll tell you this. I will be surprised if he's not at Florida in the fall. I think he gets everything done. Now, he's still got to do the transfer waiver. Can he play immediately? Don't know about that, but there's some rumors about academics and all that stuff, and he can't get there. I personally think he's going to get to Florida. He's going to get enrolled sometime this summer. He's going to work out in the Atlanta area and take some classes right now, from what I understand. But I anticipate him being in Florida in June. I really do.
You just saw a game-changing tight end at Florida, and what Dan Mullen could do with a guy like that, and Eric Gilbert kind of fits that mold.
Yep. I mean, you just say, look, we're not going to tell you what we're going to do. Here's what we did, And Kyle Pitts was a problem. And Eric Gilbert, he's that guy too. I mean, he is, I asked Kirby specifically about Brock Bowers because he was a very, very, very guy. And interesting, he says that GPS stuff that tells you that Brock Bowers is a guy that can run. So, you look at Darnell Washington at Georgia, but certainly at Florida, they have shown what they can do with a tight end, and they got another one coming that's going to step right in there.
Yeah, do you think there's anything to the fact that Washington got featured a little more towards the end of the season?
There's no question. I don't have to ask anybody. I was watching that game, and I thought, this guy just got 5 balls in a row. I mean, they had him about to pass out, and they reflected, but Darnell Washington's he was, if Eric Gilbert was number 1 in that class, Darnell was probably number 2, he was that Theo Johnson was a guy that Georgia recruited really hard at one to Penn State. I remember being at the Notre Dame game, and those two guys were sitting on the front row. And I remember seeing Darnell Washington going, I cannot believe that guy. He's really 6'7" and a half. So, yeah, I mean, you look at all these battles, and Florida certainly Eric Gilbert is a guy. I've watched him since he was at Wilbert Academy in 8th grade. I remember seeing him, this big, long, goofy-looking kid, with these arms down to his ankles, man, catching balls. I was like, oh my goodness, man. Then when he got to Marietta, was able to get touches there with Harrison Bay and those guys. I mean, he was a difference maker. Really good kid. Mom's a great person. Know her well. Kiva Gilbert does a great job with him, and they were very guarded in their recruiting process, and no problem with that at all. And it's fun to watch these kids from the 8th, 9th grade get on to the next level. We talk about Miko Harmon this weekend. We all known and covered him, and Miko Harmon committed on Fox 5. Never forget that day, losing signal up there in Elberton, but luckily we pulled it off. But to see him in the Super Bowl this weekend, that's the fun part of watching those kids. Trevor Lawrence talked to his dad for probably 30, 40 minutes yesterday and talked about some of the stuff, Trevor, all the decisions he has to make and they had to make as a family. There's a lot that goes into that. But, this young man's about to be on the forefront of the NFL. And, we all watched him from Cartersville on. So that's the fun part. And wherever they go to school, it's just fun to watch them go and get to the highest level.
I don't want to make you sleep with the enemy or anything, Rusty, but what do you think about Florida's class in total? They ended up ranked number 13 in the country. Actually brought in, and of course that doesn't include transfers. And they got 4 other guys besides Eric Gilbert coming in who are going to be able to help them out right away too.
I think I saw where you take DeMarcus Bowman and Garrett Gilbert, and if you were to put them in the points, they would be 6th or 5th. I think with Florida, what you look, Carlos Del Rio, here's a kid that went to Cartersville, and Carlos, I watched him at McEachern, and just kind of I never left a game going, man, he I don't know. Sometimes his decision making and those types of things, but he kept growing. I don't know if you guys remember the Adidas satellite camp at Kennesaw State. And I remember Dan Mullen and the entire Florida staff stood behind Carlos Del Rio for about 2 hours, and they watched him throw. And I thought, man, they're about to offer him. And sure enough, they offered him that night. And a couple weeks later, he committed. He went to Cartersville this year, after the Grayson ineligible, goes to Cartersville. And I think Carlos Del Rio is a guy that you put into that system. And Dan Mullen, he's a bigger kid. He's a 210-pound guy that can run and use his legs. He's big. He can run behind his pads. I think Carlos Del Rio is a little bit underrated and not quite talked enough about. I'm interested to see what he does at Florida. But obviously those portal transfers they got really going to help. Britton Cox transfer those guys. So you look at all they lost, and what they got, I think Florida's pretty much smiling tonight, knowing, especially with DeMarcus Bowman and Eric Gilbert.
I do want to say one quick thing about the Georgia class. That is that my favorite player in that whole group is got to be the young man with the Hebrew first name. That's oh my gosh, I forgot his last name. Adonai. What's his last name, Rusty?
For in the Georgia class?
Yeah. Hold on, I'll have it in a second. Adonai Mitchell.
Oh yeah.
Out of Antioch, Tennessee. Adonai, if people don't know, is a Hebrew name for God. So whoever named him has a deep, abiding love of researching and history into the Bible. So good for them up there in Tennessee.
Yep. Georgia. Yep.
Can I completely flip us? And
Please.
Rusty, I do want to ask you. We cannot do a recruiting show, and Doug and I talked about it earlier. When the news came out through the Dan Patrick show about the McDonald's bag going on at Tennessee, are you just totally floored, or is that things you've heard stories about? Is that something that happens in more places than on Rocky Top?
No, you hear stuff everywhere. You hear stuff about every school, and I don't know, but I would be surprised if it was something that blatant, something that silly. You know what I mean? If you're going to do it, you're not going to hand out. You may have handed one McDonald's bag, but I've never heard of somebody getting a McDonald's bag. You know what I mean? So, he kind of threw out some stuff, some allegations here and there. He obviously threw something out. I tell you what was interesting. When he said something about Georgia, that Georgia got a little sloppy is what I think is what he said. In our industry, we kind of take that serious, and we kind of look and see. The UGA compliance about 2 hours later came out with a statement real quick, and I've never seen that ever, and came out and said, hey, we're not under any type of investigation and we're not getting investigated. So, I've never seen that. So for a school to do that, I think Georgia felt pretty confident where they were with those deals. So, Tennessee deal, obviously the details don't know, but I would be surprised if that was actually the case of giving out McDonald's. But I tell you what, Twitter had fun with it. It was everywhere. And, McDonald's was trending that day. So, somewhere someone was thinking, why are we trending? What have we done?
What have we done so good? Yeah,
why are we everywhere? And then they had to go, oh, okay. So, I saw the trending thing that day. I was like, McDonald's is trending. I bet someone is having a ball in the corporate office about that.
I'm going to say something real quick because I got to tie South Alabama in whenever I can to one of our shows. So T. Martin, who's a wide receiver, I think he's still a wide receivers coach, or he was a wide receivers coach. He interviewed for the open South Alabama head coaching position back in December. He's a local hero from Mobile, so it's did a lot of reason. He got a second interview, but this was, long before the Dan Patrick show. Then he took his name out of the running. Now, I'm not sure he's going to get the job anyway. But I heard at that time that part of it was because they'd heard the Tennessee was starting to get looked at by the NCAA. And even though I don't know if T. Martin's name was in it or not, just the fact that he was going to be part of that, they were just like, all right, that's it. No, we can't go down this road not knowing what's going to happen. So
a couple of guys, T. Martin, Will Friend, Jim Chaney, you didn't see their names mentioned anywhere. Chris Winkie, some of those deals. So when you get in a situation like that, I'm sure they just they cleaned house as much as they could, but there were certainly some guys that were mentioned over and over, and there were some guys that weren't mentioned, and you'll see those guys probably employed pretty quickly. Obviously we hear Jeremy Pruitt's going to the Giants, so he'll step off into the NFL, but that thing will play out as it goes. But I just have a hard time believing that McDonald's bags given away, maybe once or something, but I can't see somebody being that blatant and being that comical with it, because but I think that's SMU 1984 type stuff. I think some of the 30 from 30s from back in the day.
All right, can I go to something warm and fuzzy now? Then can we shift? I will ask you,
Cody. Let's hold on to the warm and fuzzy. Okay. We'll let you open with that. When we come back, we got to take one more quick break here. Everyone, keep it right here. We're taking it up until 9 o'clock. It's 680 The Fans Virtual Signing Day, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, Duffy Realty of Atlanta. You're listening to Virtual Signing Day of Sports Radio 680 The Fan.
The Fans Podcast Park brings you the biggest lineup of local podcasts in Atlanta, all presented by Associated Credit Union. Get 2 hours of college football talk every day with the Chuck Oliver Show podcast. Welcome to Matlanta, Domino's archive of baseball legends on hardball, McAlpin's weekly Braves update, and Matt Chernoff's Daily 10 every weekday at 10 a.m. Subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts or stream them anytime at thepodcastpark.com. Presented by Associated Credit Union.
It's the 55th Annual Football Championship, and you can follow all the action at betonline.net. Tampa Bay meets Kansas City on Sunday, and all eyes from around the world will be focused on what is expected to be a classic. Being billed as the perfect matchup of all time, it's the GOAT against his successor. In 4 previous meetings, each QB has won twice. Check out all the action this week at betonline.net as a true clash of the Titans is on tap. Always available online or your mobile device. Visit betonline.net today. Bring the game home at betonline.net.
Whether you're out of state or just out on the road, take the station with you with the Fan app, sponsored by T-Mobile. Get instant access to the live stream or listen to your favorite shows anytime you want them. Plus, it keeps you connected to all the latest news from your favorite teams. Download the Fan app now, sponsored by T-Mobile. The Fans Podcast Park brings you the biggest lineup of local podcasts in Atlanta, all presented by Associated Credit Union. Get 2 hours of college football talk every day with the Chuck Oliver Show podcast. Welcome to Matlanta, Domino's archive of baseball legends on hardball, McAlpin's weekly Braves update, and Matt Chernoff's Daily 10 every weekday at 10 a.m. Subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts or stream them anytime at thepodcastpark.com. Presented by Associated Credit Union. Georgia Tech basketball is only live on Atlanta's sports station.
Into the lane, and he jams it down. Right wing three. Yes, sir.
The Fan is bringing you every moment of Georgia Tech basketball, including all the big ACC matchups as the Jackets make a push for the tournament. Atlanta's only home of the Jackets is The Fan. One big thing to be excited about in 2021 is your Atlanta Braves.
Tell you what, if you're looking for firepower, you've come to the right place. Another home run for the Braves.
With a reigning National League MVP and an explosive lineup of young talent, it's going to be a big year for the Bravos.
That ball is gone. Home run, Dansby.
And there's only one station live from the Battery every day and live from Northport for every moment of Braves spring training. Starting our 12th year as the home of the Braves, The Fan. The biggest recruits in the South are making their commitments, and the Fan Signing Day coverage is live on the air and on YouTube. It's all presented by Duffy Realty of Atlanta, AquaGuard Foundation Solutions, Georgia Power, Fox 5 Atlanta, on the high school football voice of the South, The Fan.
It's our final segment here on 680's Virtual Signing Day 2021 class, about to have the final bow put on it. I'm Doug Konkel here with 24/7 Sports Rusty Mansell, Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta. We're brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta as well. Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta all teaming up to help us talk to you about this final event of the recruiting season for the class of 2021. And right before the break, Cody, you were going to give us a warm, fuzzy topic to kind of work on for a little bit. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, we've talked about the underbelly of recruiting, right? So there are some cool stories out today. One of them, Blake Bohannon, wide receiver out of Etowah, going to play for his dad, Brian Bohannon, at Kennesaw State. So that's kind of a cool story there. And then not necessarily a guy who signed, but a cool preferred walk-on in Logan Johnson, a Prince Avenue Christian, who's going to go and play at Georgia with his friend and his teammate Brock Vandergrift, both state champions there. So, Rusty, I'll let you touch on those. There's kind of some cool storylines this signing day.
And you also look at Will Muschamp. He gets the coach's kid now. You know, he'll get hit. So Will Muschamp will be off the field. So I don't want to tip anything. I think his younger son, who is a 2024 quarterback, Whit Muschamp, really good player. He's going to end up in Athens somewhere at one of those schools. So he's probably going to get to go to high school games for the first time on Friday nights in a long time. So you look at Coach Bohannon get a chance to coach his son. Logan Johnson, man, he just made a man out of me, let's just say, because I kept seeing him when he, ninth grader, and I was like, this kid is so small, man. And you look at him in the 10th grade, he was so small. And I remember when I got the call that he was going to Prince, and I thought, you know what? This kid's going to catch 100 balls. perfect for that offense, and he just did a great job. And I have some close friends that have kids that play for Darlington, and Darlington played Prince in I believe the second round. And I told those guys, we went to dinner, I said, let me tell you something. I want y'all to look at number 1 in a pregame. And I said, you're going to look at him and go, there's no way that kid can do it. And I was getting text. I was doing another game. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I was getting text, who is this number 1? He's killing us. We can't cover him, and he runs, punts back, and kicks back. So everywhere he's been always told he was too small. So for me, I would bet against him being a punt returner someday at Georgia. He's going to make those defensive backs work their tails off over there. And I know Logan Johnson is going with a big chip on the shoulder, small man, but man, he works hard. He's got great hands. He has great vision, great punt return. It's going to be fun to watch his career and see what he does at Georgia.
I had a chance to watch him play against Wesleyan, and the kid is absolutely a player. Yeah, people probably don't realize he was actually committed to Troy for a very long time. He'd have caught 100 balls this season at Troy. I mean, he would have lit them up. So obviously he won't be that productive at Georgia. There's just too much talent in front of him, but he gets to live the dream he's had, and he's going to play some for him. I guarantee you he will, just like you will, Rusty.
I believe that. I tell people all the time, the biggest thing you think about Logan thinks he's 6'2". So that's all that matters. He thinks he's 6'2". I will say this: there's been no official announcements yet, but I do know the matchups, and I think us as football fans are going to love the Corky Kell matchups. This is going to be really, really good. I think everybody's going to like. I think it's out. Lowndes is going to play Hoover and Mercedes-Benz, so we got some out-of-state teams there, but. It's crazy that's already done. That should be announced here in 2 or 3 weeks. I think everybody will be excited. We'll all be excited for those games. But as crazy as it sounds, we'll get to spring practice. The next thing you know, Cody will be shooting practices and getting his brackets ready, man, for this football season.
And hopefully it goes much more normal than last year. I'm not wearing a mask in the bunker trying to explain what's going on. I can see Logan Johnson – being like a kid out of Marist, went to Georgia Tech. Kelly Rhino back in the day.
Kelly Rhino.
Never going to fair catch it, and he'll get creamed. But you know what? He's going to catch it every time. I can definitely see that.
Yep.
Rusty, I will ask you, Logan Johnson, does that help Brock Vandergriff, obviously having somebody like that? And you had a preferred walk-on a couple of years ago from Rabun County and Braxton Hicks, who played with Gunnar Stockton. I got to imagine that combination probably helped get Stockton.
Yeah. I mean, you do that, but the battle that Brock Vandergriff's going to be in, I mean, he's going to be dealing with the Aaron Smiths and the George Pickens and those types of guys, and some of the players that they just signed in this class. So Logan will have to cut his own path. He'll have a different path going from the scout team. Have to prove it every day and see if he can get his chance. But I'm with Doug. I can't bet against this kid. But Brock Vandergriff, I talked to his dad last week, and certainly very respectful of Gunnar. They know how talented he is. But I think Brock's got a great attitude, and Brock is worried about what's in front of him. And what's in front of him is this season and JT Daniels and getting better. And he'll worry about the other part later on. And Brock is really a kid that never really got caught up in the recruiting stuff. When he decommitted from Oklahoma, he didn't want a million stories done, didn't want to talk to anybody. He did that and then committed to Georgia fairly quick and got it over with. Gunnar, the exact same way. Gunnar did not want to wait around. He wanted to commit to Georgia, get this thing out of the way. He's going to concentrate on 7-on-7. He's playing with some big-time Georgia targets. The Nylon Morissette, Brookwood, Oxford Delt from West Forsyth. All those guys are playing together 7-on-7 this spring and going all over the country playing. So he's out doing some recruiting for Georgia right now, and he gave up baseball for the first time. Really hurt his dad doing that, but he understands, he's going to play 7-on-7, go to Rabun County, have his senior year. And this time next year, we'll be asking Kirby Smart how Gunnar Stockton is looking early on, because he'll be on Georgia's campus.
It's not local, but another kid who's going to play for his dad is Dylan McCaffrey, left Michigan, 4-star quarterback out of there, and he's going to play for his dad at Northern Colorado. So he won't need a waiver because he's going down a level. And my main question is, how many McCaffreys are there in the world? Because it seems like every year another one comes along that's a 4 or 5-star player.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. We had a chance to see McCaffrey, the Carolina running back.
Christian.
Christian.
Hey, we had a chance to see Christian. We had him out there with Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and Christian McCaffrey on the other team.
Wow.
So we had pretty good running backs in Texas that week, and I remember going, we have some freaking dudes out here, man. But it was fun. What about Nick Chubb, man? Great year. Hurt a couple of games, got his 1,000 yards. Cleveland, comes pretty close there against Kansas City. But what I love about Nick Chubb, he's going to take a week off, and he'll be at Cedartown. He's probably at Cedartown this week. He's starting his off-season lifting, man. The guy's a robot.
I get to see him probably holding a Prius over his head. It's like the off-season workout for him these days. It's bigger and stronger every time I see him.
Crazy, man. He works out with he works out in the high school in the mornings, but he trains in the afternoon and trains with his high school strength coach, Mike Worthington out of Cedartown High School, the same person that has trained Nick Chubb since he was in middle school. When he went through the agent part, everybody was like, we'll send you here. We'll send you to California. We'll send you to Arizona. Nick Chubb said, hey, I'm going to Polk County. I'm going to train there for the draft. And, that guy knows my body. I'm comfortable with him. And, they do their thing. But it's always interesting to go watch Nick work out. And he's in there with all the 8th, 9th graders, 10th graders in a little PE class. And he's just over in the corner doing about 10 times more the weight than the other kids doing the same workout.
Doesn't Cedartown's got another recruit coming up, right? He's going to be training.
C.J. Washington's committed to Georgia. He plays running back, wears 27 for Nick. He's going to play inside linebacker probably at Georgia. When you see C.J. Washington, people say all the time, man, what are they doing? They steroids, those kids? But C.J. works out with Nick. Nick's kind of take him under his wing. That's his little guy. And they just sent Jaden Johnson to Arkansas, who decommitted from South Carolina. He is now at Arkansas, so that was a good get. But Cedartown certainly got a player in C.J. Washington, committed to Georgia, lifelong dream. And he's a kid that, he's going to be a physical specimen for the next 2 years, too.
You mentioned Arkansas. Your buddy Sam Pittman out there. He had a pretty good day yesterday, today, and December as well. I mean, they're in the top 15.
I talked to Coach Pittman last week. He was super excited. I think they had 10 seniors come back, and then they had this class. So he's very, very excited about the future there at Arkansas. I mean, they've got a lot of momentum there. And here's the thing about Arkansas. I don't think they want to say it, but Arkansas it's an 8-5, 9-3 if things go well type school. And every now and then they'll play in the dome. They've done it in the SEC championship, but they were so far down and lost. They lost 2 years in a row. They didn't win a game in SEC. And for what Sam Pittman did, I tell you, the biggest recruiting battle he won was keeping Barry Odom from Texas, and keeping Barry Odom from Texas and LSU. Again, 2 years in a row, keeping Barry Odom from LSU was a big deal. Arkansas was really good on defense. They got a lot of guys coming back, and I think Arkansas is a team that's not getting enough publicity because, man, they're going to have a ton of really good football players coming back. Second year under Sam Pittman, I think Arkansas fans are going to be ecstatic at the product they got on the field.
I think Felipe Franks actually had a good week at the Senior Bowl, too. And that just speaks to how well he was developed first at Florida and then what they managed to finish up with him at Arkansas. They made a guy who was just all raw talent into a quarterback. I don't think he's a first-round pick or anything, but he's going to get drafted now.
I think the thing I remember this year is when Arkansas played Florida, Dan Mullen comes out and gives him a big hug after the game. That says a lot. Only one guy can play. He knew that he was very talented, but Kendall Browse did a great job with Felipe Franks. I think he only threw 3 interceptions this year, 4. So he had a really, really good year, and I think Felipe Franks will get drafted. He is a big, big dude in person. I remember having Jacob Easton and him out there at the same time on that East team at the All-American Bowl, and I was like, man, these two guys are quarterbacks at 6'5", 6'6", and big guys.
Well, fellas, I got to tell you, we're just about to wrap this thing up. We're probably going to have to plan on reconvening about 10 months from now, so you guys going to be available at that point?
I'll be here.
I should have a fresh back then, so I'll be doing part of this.
Yeah, everyone needs to kind of send positive waves to Rusty. Had back issues. Anyone who's had him knows it can be pretty tough. So, I've been living in the basement for this past week, but I get to emerge into the sunshine on Monday, so that'll be exciting. Cody, what's wrong with your life right now? Everything all right?
No, I'm in good shape right now. We got a lot of sports to cover. It is a busy time. We got a lot of our high five guys. We love to cover them playing in the Super Bowl, so we've done a few of those stories leading up, and the Braves will be down at spring training. I mean, I was hoping for a slow season. It never stops.
Cody, let me ask you the Braves excitement, man. I mean, how much excitement is around them?
I think when you added to the pitching staff in the offseason, Ozuna would just be a huge splash if they could do that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think there's a lot of positive vibes. The big question is everybody else in the NL East got better, and so can the Braves? How will that change what the Braves can do?
You know what? We've been so enwrapped in this show that I forgot the Super Bowl's this weekend, so I got something I can focus on now besides this. Hey guys, I want to thank everyone who helped us out today by being part of the show. That's Jeff Collins of Georgia Tech, Keith Knieber of Auburn 24/7, and of course Coach Kirby Smart of the Georgia Bulldogs joined us as well. This has been the Virtual Signing Day show. We have had a great time bringing it to you for the second time in the last couple of months. We were brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia Power, AquaGuard, and Duffy Realty of Atlanta. I want to thank David and Brandon back in the studios. And for Rusty Mansell of 24/7 Sports, for Cody Chaffins of Fox 5 Atlanta, I'm Doug Konkel. Wishing you good night and have a good signing next year.
Hey Atlanta, it's Front Office Lowe's for